The U.S. flag international merchant fleet is in danger today because it's in a state of political crisis. As many in the shipping industry know, the U.S. flag has been in decline for many years, since World War II, and that's for several reasons. Competition for seafarers, foreign seafarers from developing countries, higher taxes, over-regulation of the industry, but probably most important, a lack of a cohesive maritime policy in the United States. According to statistics from the U.S. Maritime Administration, there were 1,100 vessels in the U.S. flag fleet in 1955 sailing internationally. That's now down to about 90 ships. In 1955, roughly 25% of the U.S. flag fleet carried international cargo. That's now down to about 2%. So now, with budget cuts coming out from Congress due to sequestration, the U.S. flag fleet faces even more drastic parebacks, and specifically in two programs, the Food for Peace program and the Maritime Security Program, or MSP. The Food for Peace program was established in 1954 as a way to provide food security for developing nations. Half of the Food for Peace program or half of the USDA portion of the Food for Peace program is required by law to move on U.S. flag, U.S. crewed ships. The Obama administration restructured that program in 2014 such that instead of providing the ships, they would provide the money to the countries directly. So instead of the food being grown here in the country and paid to be transported over to those nations would get that money directly. Now, because of that, 8 to 10 vessels could be actually cut from the Food for Peace program. The Obama administration defends that, saying that it's a more efficient way to get food to the people who need it. The Food for Peace program, that restructuring of that program is now part of the Farm Bill, which is being discussed in the House and Senate right now. Cuts to these programs could potentially harm America's defense sea lift capability, basically because they have to provide these vessels to the U.S. military. Earlier this year, I interviewed Duncan Hunter. He is the Republican chair of the U.S. Coast Guard and Maritime Subcommittee in the House of Representatives. He's a former Marine officer, and he served in the Persian Gulf War. So he's particularly aware of both the military and commercial importance of the U.S. flag fleet. He basically said that because of the strain on the U.S. naval assets due to international confrontations around the world and a pivot in the U.S. into the Pacific theater, which our sister publication, Jane's Defense Weekly, has been covering extensively, the MSP program is more important than ever. Interestingly enough, the container ship Maersk Alabama, which was famously hijacked in 2009 and is now the subject of a movie coming out called Captain Phillips, that was part of both the MSP program and delivered food aid. So, in other words, here you have a ship that was able to successfully defend itself against pirates, and yet it is now dangerously close to having its budget cut by the very country that flags its ship. IHS performed a project for the U.S. Maritime Administration in 2009 and basically found that the decentralized structure of U.S. maritime policy lacks a central authority to coordinate among the different agencies. Therefore, U.S. maritime policy becomes filtered out and lacks a leader among the different departments. Responsibilities for commerce, for safety, for national security, for environmental issues become spread out among the different agencies, sometimes that have conflicting and overlapping missions. IHS found that by incorporating and centralizing U.S. maritime policy, that this would basically solve those problems, and that it would go a long ways in helping the U.S. Become U.S. bolster and support its merchant fleet.